To be called a refugee is the opposite of an insult. It is a badge of strength, courage, and victory. The Rohingya have faced decades of discrimination and repression against or under, the successive Myanmar governments, effectively denied citizenship under the 1982 citizenship law. They are one of the largest stateless population in the world, and over 1 million of them are residing currently in the largest refugee camp in the world. Assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh. This is Taha Ghayur with another episode of Canada Today on Muslim Network TV, bringing you another session of enlightenment and hopefully to stir our minds and emotions. In 2018, the House of Commons motion endorsed the findings of a United Nations fact-finding mission that concluded that the crimes against humanity have been committed against Rohingya Muslims and other ethnic minorities in Myanmar, thus calling it a genocide. Canada was one of the top providers of asylum to Rohingya refugees and resettled more than 300 people from camps in Bangladesh between 2006 and 2010. Today, we have three passionate, courageous activists with us in our studio with their own very special stories to share. And they will also update us on the struggles of Rohingyas living in Canada and what lies ahead for them in the near future, inshallah. We'll start off with our first guest that I would like to introduce, and that is Saifullah Muhammad. He is a Rohingya activist in Canada. He graduated in journalism and acquired a master's degree in peace and conflict studies at the University of Waterloo. He is also the co-founder of the Canadian Rohingya Development Initiative, CRDI, a leading Rohingya organization that works with the government of Canada and civil society groups to bring an end to Rohingya genocide, along with promoting education and community development for the Rohingya people. Thank you so much, Saifullah, for joining us this afternoon.
Thank you, Brother Taha.
You're welcome. We also have with us today Anwar Arkani. Anwar Arkani is the founder and president of the Rohingya Association of Canada. He left Burma in 1984 to escape persecution. He lived in various countries before coming to Canada in 1998. And since then, he has been actively doing advocacy work for Rohingya people and was awarded scholarship by the U.S. Information Agency to study the Indiana University at the University of Indiana University, where he graduated with a Bachelor's of Science. Since 2007, Rohingya Association of Canada has been helping newcomer Rohingya settle in Canada with their post-settlement work. Thank you so much, Brother Anwar, for joining us this afternoon.
You're welcome. It is an honor to have you here.
Thank you.
To be invited.
Thank you so much. Appreciate it. And last but not least, Yasminullah is a Rohingya social justice activist born in northern Rakhine state of Myanmar. She fled to Thailand in 1995 with her parents and remained a refugee until 2011. She currently serves as the president of Rohingya Human Rights Network, a not-for-profit group led by activists across Canada in advocacy and raising public awareness of the Rohingya genocide. She is currently completing her undergrad degree in political science in Vancouver, BC. Welcome to the show, Yasmin, and thank you for being with us. I think you are on mute.
Thank you for having me.
You are welcome. Thank you, all of you, for being here with us. Brother Anwar, we'll start off with you, and we all have a lot of, I guess, difficult conversations to have today, given all the great work you guys have been doing. Brother Anwar, we wanted to start out by asking you, where it all began for you, really, in some ways. You escaped Burma in 1984. How old were you at the time?
I was just a bare teenager, about 14, 15.
Mm-hmm. And who was with you when you left Burma? or Rohingya, actually Rakhine State?
I left twice in a sense. First time I was a primary school student. It was in 1978 when the Burmese government took the first attempt to completely get rid of this Rohingya race. It was 1978. I was along with my mother and sibling. My father was murdered by the government along with thousands of others. Then about a year later, I went back. Then after 1982 Citizenship Act was passed, the hope of continuing education and every other things that as a young man I was dreaming shattered. Then I had no choice but to leave the country and go somewhere else to find something else. That's how I left the second time at the beginning of 1984, just by myself along with a few other friends. No family, no siblings, no known person, just a few other teenagers. That's how I left. Then I spent quite a few years in Bangladesh doing various different things. Then surviving in Bangladesh was really a challenge. Then in 1989, towards the end of 88 and beginning of 89, the country opened up a little bit. Then I managed to go to Thailand through Burma just to try to see if I could make a difference. That's how I ended up being in Thailand for the next 10 years. Then I came to Canada.
So how did you end up coming to Canada? Did you come as a refugee here, or did you come here as an immigrant?
During my stay in Thailand, I tried many different things, and I came across a program ran through UNHCR, United Nations High Commissioner for Refugees. It was a teacher training course. The trainer was a Canadian from Elora, Guelph, where I live now, very close to where I live. And that gentleman saw me doing quite well in the training, and then he said, why don't you apply to go to Canada? So that's how it started initially. I applied as a refugee to settle in Canada through government sponsorship, and I submitted my application to a few other embassies, but the Canadian embassy called me and interviewed me, and they brought me here as a government-sponsored refugees. They sent me. I am probably the first Rohingya to be settled in eastern part of Canada, in eastern part of Canada at that time. Then during my while I was waiting to be settled in Canada, there was an opportunity for me to participate in some kind of educational program. That's where I took some exam and took TOEFL test and all sort of things. Then that's where I was awarded the scholarship to study at the Indiana University.
MashaAllah.
And soon after I came, I contacted. I told this little story of mine to the reception house where all the immigrants comes to KW area get assistance. The lady was very intrigued, and she said, "Oh, are you really interested? Still going back to school?" I said, "Yes, that is the only hope I had in my entire life." Then she did something quickly. It turned out to be really a wonderful thing, and I was able to get the scholarship, and I was able to go to Indiana University and study.
That's a beautiful story of again, a great success story of course, how people who come here as immigrants or refugees and what they're able to achieve, but also the fact that we have the opportunities that Canada offers to all of us. Saifullah, I have I wanted to talk to you for a bit. You were born in Burma and you were brought up in refugee camps. How old were you when you fled Burma? I think you're muted. Yes, go ahead.
I was about 6 years old when we fled to Bangladesh refugee camps. Immediately after my birth, I began to live where I simply didn't exist. I was born in an isolated isolated township called Ratedong in Myanmar, in Arkan State, in what is now Rakhine State. Then, at the age of 5 or 6, maybe 5.5, I joined millions of fellow Rohingya who were illegally erased from the fabric of our country, a process that has been accelerated since 1982. So in other ones, like we call it now a genocide. My family and I fled to escape for the refugee camps. In the refugee camps, when I was very little young guy, we found a corruption, poverty, insecurity to greet us once we got there, and then where presently 1 million refugees live. Or my parents still live there in the refugee camps.
Thanks for sharing this. I mean, how did you end up coming to Canada?
It is a long story. When I was a refugee, some of us, not many, at that time when I was in the refugee camps, nobody was allowed to go out of the camp to study. So some of us escaped and studied in a Bangladeshi school, and sometimes we had to sneak back to the camps to see our parents. So that time I studied outside, and my community leaders live in Chittagong. They came to know that I was the only person from that camp studying outside. They knew about me, and they invited me to the office to work for one of the news agency called Kaladan Press, which is still exists. I was working with them and plus studying, and I was a first year student. They helped me a lot. My community leaders helped me a lot to get to university for the first year with English language and literature. And my parents were still in the refugee camp, so they didn't have any ability or capacity to help me, to support me financially. But my community leaders, they supported me a lot to go to the university. And then I got a scholarship through them to Thailand, and then at Chiang Mai University, where Yasmin lived, and father of Yasmin helped me a lot to go here and there in Chiang Mai. And then after in Chiang Mai for more than maybe 1 year, we had to flee again to Bangladesh. We had to go back to Bangladesh again. That time, so, I was very young, only 17 years old. My community leaders live in Thailand, including father of Yasmin, advised me, don't go back to Bangladesh again. It is the worst time in Bangladesh for the refugees. We can help you to go to Malaysia, because Malaysia has been issuing some UNHCR ID card for the refugees. So they helped me to come to Malaysia, and I came to Malaysia in 2006 with the help of community leaders and some people I knew in the refugee camps from the UNHCR. They helped me to get a registration with UNHCR, and then life went well, and I was teaching in a school, not a refugee school first. For 2 years, I taught in a school in Malaysia, and then after 2 years, maybe 3 years, I was teaching in a refugee school. I was working with the Rohingya community, working with the Rohingya Vision TV since 2012, and in various work I was working, and life went well until 2016.
What a journey! MashaAllah. What a journey!
And then in 2014, I got married. Rohingya, who is a Canadian before that. So then I was a refugee, but she sponsored me. I came here as a sponsored refugee. So in 2016 October, I landed Toronto. Since then, I call Kitchener home.
Alhamdulillah. Yep. And that's where, of course, the largest population of Rohingya community is in Canada, mashallah. And it's great to see all the work you guys are doing, you and your work, as well as with Anwar and other people in the community, mashallah. Your parents are still in the camps. I wonder, how do you? I mean, I can't even imagine what it's like to have your own parents still being in refugee camps while you are, alhamdulillah, free now in many ways and enjoying a good life of peace and security. How do you communicate with your parents? I mean, have you ever tried bringing them over? Have you tried sponsorship? Are there opportunities at all of this sort?
Actually, yes, it is very hard to communicate them now. Even once in a month, twice in a month, I can call them. Sometimes the line cut off because of the internet access in Bangladesh. There's no internet access. Everybody knows that. So this is one of the biggest problem, biggest challenge to call them now, even to talk so how they are in this pandemic. So if I if I if I talked about sponsoring them here, we have been waiting for the government, Bangladeshi government, to allow them to come to Canada for as a refugee. Since 2010, 2006 to 2010, Bangladeshi governments allowed some refugees to come here, including my father-in-laws and some other refugees have been living in Kitchener and other places in Canada. So the government of Canada, they have been, as you know, and all those, they are trying to bring some extended family, some of our extended family here, and the vulnerable refugees from the refugee camp in Bangladesh, but the government is not allowing them. So we have no way just now to bring them from Bangladesh until the Bangladeshi government allow them to come with a refugee exit visa.
Yes, that is a big challenge, unfortunately. Well, Yasmin, you were born in Myanmar, and I was wondering, how old were you before you and your family fled to Thailand?
I was 3 years old.
Oh wow! So you don't probably have any memories of Myanmar itself, I'm assuming, Arakan State probably.
Yeah, it was very blurry for the most part, and I only hear the secondary accounts from my parents or from my relatives mostly.
So your entire family moved at the time?
It was just my parents. Unfortunately, during that time, there was a lot of confusion, just like any other time that we were persecuted. Around the 90s, at the beginning of the 90s, there was a lot of massacre, a lot of violence, a lot of human rights abuse that was taking place against Rohingya, with a very, very clear purpose. I would try to make that point that the military had strategically planned this for a long time, and they know exactly what they're doing. So a majority of people, a few 100,000 people, actually had left and fled to Bangladesh, and they were, like the first few waves of the refugees, the exodus, and with my dad being completely outside of Burma, he fled and he was working in order to support his own family and his, including his extended families as well, his mom, his relatives, his brothers and sisters. All of us basically were still in Myanmar at that point, and it was becoming quite volatile, the situation, the peace, or any sort of livelihood that we were expecting, hoping, after we kind of joined hand with the Myanmar authorities in the 40s in order to unite the country as an ethnic community. But unfortunately, that fell apart with the military coup. So when my mom saw all of that, she feared for me. She feared that the kind of situation, the fear that is rampant within the community will eventually force women to be hidden, to be protected in a way that they're not allowed to participate in the community as much as they would have been able to had this not happened. So one thing that she had very clear in mind was she wanted me to be able to read and write, as simple as that. And she was the one who pushed my dad in order for us to move together to Thailand, even if it would take her a long journey. through sea on her own, and it was very, very daunting for her to actually took me up on a ship full of military men, and her being basically being at risk of being harassed by these men. And then she made it to Rangoon, which was the capital city at the time of Burma. And the next part of that, my dad accompanied us, and we smuggled through Thailand that way, not by boat, but through land.
Wow, subhanallah. And just recently I came across a tweet from you stating that you just marked 10 years of your, of calling Canada home, mashallah, which is great. So how did you then ended up coming, and how did you end up coming to Canada with your family?
It was also a really, really long journey as well. I was there for about 16 years. We lived there without any documents, without any sort of safety net in terms of where we would go, no support system whatsoever. With our, relatives, and majority of my family are still in Rakhine State to this day. We were basically cut off from our own, clan, our own people. And I grew up being very, very isolated from the rest of my community. I grew up not being able to speak my own language. I grew up not being able to understand, what trauma was for my parents, that they had to leave, everything that they ever knew, and try to make it work in a new land. And unfortunately, Thailand did not have a very favorable policy toward refugees. The UNHCR, the agency that helps refugee, are working at the mercy of the Thai authority, because Thailand never signed the contract or the covenant to take care of the refugees or the refugee convention. So they have they absolutely have no obligation to take care of us. So we were sort of floating around, trying to make it work, running from police from time to time. Every time that we go through checkpoints, we would just be so nervous that they're going to try and, arrest us and deport us, which happened to my dad many times. So there was that factor of family separation, and the separation within our own family, the small unit that we had. And I remember, I had to be the one witnessing the birth of my brother, because my dad was in jail because he was, the wrong skin color, born in the wrong place. And that was enough. And I was 6 years old at the time, crying in front of the, delivery room, hoping that my mom would be okay, because I saw her before the labor and I didn't understand what was going on. So that was quite interesting, as, going through that kind of experience. I can laugh about it now, but it was very, very traumatizing as a child. So that was kind of the life that I had, apart from all the discrimination, because I obviously did not look like a Thai person. And so I was always nervous in school, making sure that I always do really, really well. And eventually, at some point, because my dad was quite an activist in Thailand, even though he didn't have any documentations, he was really, really brave to do that. So two missionaries, who one of whom was a Canadian woman, and her husband came to my dad actually in one of his events, and offered to help. And they were like, we don't need to to talk about your people. We know that they need help, but what about you personally? And my brother was diagnosed with autism not too long ago, at that point. And that was one of the worries that my dad and actually my entire family, we were always worried about that, because Thailand has very, very little resources for people like my brother. And so we pushed forward the idea that we wanted to be resettled in a third country because of the restrictions, and how much of a trouble it would be for us to be arrested at some point, or for me not to be able to go to school. So essentially, we got processed, and like Brother Anwar, we we slowly went through the process, which was a really long time. It was about 6 years actually, and we did not have exit permit. And at that point in time, in 2011, around that year or two, the Thai government was not allowing any resettlement of the refugees. And we were sort of stuck in the limbo, even though there was a lot of private sponsorship that, got processed, everything went through and we got interviewed, everything, was perfect. The Canadian embassy gave us the paper. We, had a very limited timeline to actually land in Canada before the papers expired. So we had to go through, a novel way, a creative way. And fortunately, Allah sent us people that would help us get through all of the troubles in life, whether it's, small or big. And this was one of the times that I felt the presence of God and the angels around me. We actually had to decide to go into a detention center, gave up basically gave ourselves in. And I went basically the day before. I was still, going through doors, like walking around perfectly fine on the street. Now that day, it was the day that I walked in and people locked the door behind me, and I was in a tiny cell with other, people who were arrested because because of an illegal entry or passport issues. And it was a huge learning moment to be locked behind the bars and not being able to see the sky, and having to really figure out how and what humans would need to do in order to survive in such a circumstance. Fortunately, 5 days later, with the help of the lawyer that had initiated the process, we were able to get the paper signed for deportation, but the deportation process was not to the country of origin, but to Canada. So on June 24th, 2011, we landed on Canada, and Vancouver has been my home since.
MashaAllah. Well, thank you for sharing this heartbreaking story, and the story of a lot of course, courage that you and your family have gone through. And I see quite a few intersections between the stories that all three of you actually share. Thailand seems to be a common place that all of you at some point were in, and there's some good Samaritan somewhere who actually was there. Of course, God sent, alhamdulillah, to bring you to Canada and use your talent and courage now to hopefully, inshallah, save many other lives in the years to come. And speaking of Thailand and speaking of saving lives, Brother Anwar, in 2006 and 2007, you personally intervened by coming to the aid of and freeing thousands of stranded Rohingya in Thailand or in the Thailand-Burma border. Would you like to share something about this particular incident, and what transpired, and what was it like being in the middle of, I guess, a very risky, task that you were part of?
Wow. There are things in everyone's life that they have done once. If they look back and think again, I'm sure a lot of people would find that it is impossible. This is one of those tasks that I was able to do somehow. What inspired me was I was actually working for BlackBerry company here in Kitchener-Waterloo. After I came back from the US after my graduation. And a time went by, I was just by myself, alone, no family, no wife, nothing, no friends. And I was thinking, what is it that I'm doing? Why I'm here? Why I went to school? I went to school, and completion of undergraduate degree was a really daunting task, and a lot of struggle I have to go through to complete the studies. Now I'm working for a corporation which is already billions. They have billions of dollars, and I'm making them richer. I don't mean that I'm against any corporation, but that's what the feeling I had. I will. The corporation didn't give me any money, but I am making, working day and night for someone that did not help me in the with my studies. That sort of thinking coming, and then I should be helping someone who needs help, not someone who has already a lot of money and making them richer. That sort of thinking I had. Then I left for Thailand. I had multiple program in my hands. One of them was to study, enroll in a human rights program in master's degree at Mohidun. I got the admission. Another thing was to do something collectively in Thailand. And those are two main programs that I had in my mind. And I went to Thailand. Then, after a few months, something unexpected happened. I received a call from a friend who used to be in the same program as me in the teacher training program. And he called me. He's a Burmese. He has an NGO. He called me. It was December 25, the birthday of the late king. And they say, Anwar, there is a boatload of people. There are a lot of people in the boats. They were intercepted. They are in Thailand now. They were arrested. They are in the jail. We need your help. Right away, within an hour, I bought a ticket. It was in southern Thailand. I bought a ticket and then I flew, and I was there before sunset. Directly went to the police station. The gentleman was there. His team was there. I went there. Police asked me who I was and why I was there. I said I am one of them. I used to live in your country for about 10 years, and I went to Canada, and now I live in Canada. And kind of like this, briefly, I mentioned I am here to help these people. These people are running from death, imminent death. It is no fault of them. They did not commit any crime. They are here only because they have no other choice. People do things to be safe, to escape the death. That's what they're doing. So I'm here to help them, to explain their situation, and to see what I can do. I do not know how they are here, but I know the reason why they are here. It was quite convincing. The judge understood and sentenced those people for about a week only. Normally, illegal entry to Thailand is 6 months. Actually, 1 year. 1 year, when these people confess, half of the sentence is reduced. Another 6 months they should stay in the jail. But this one was an exceptional case. Only 1 week. After that, I came back to Bangkok, met with some people from the UN and other big NGOs there, and they said, "Okay, you are the only person probably could handle this situation. Please go to Masot, because these people will be ultimately sent to immigration detention center in Bangkok. From there, they will be sent back to Burma through Thai Myawaddy border. Uh, sorry, Masot Myawaddy border. That's where I was asked to go. Then I went to a town called Masot, and for the next 17, 18 months, I was there. And then people were started coming, boats loads, hundreds of thousands of them. I ended up rescuing 3,300 or plus people. I was able to negotiate with the army, not the police. Police was asking a lot of money, which I did not have. And at the border area, mostly in charge of the country in the Thai side was the army. With the local people from Mesot, I was able to negotiate with army, and then there were some NGOs who were feeding them, and yeah, it was really a very humbling, I would say, very humbling case. I am the only and probably the first and only Rohingya who dedicated that way of a lot of time and uh, uh, brought to the light of the boat plight. Rohingya people who are fleeing by boats to the media and the international community.
Well, thank you so much. I mean, this is definitely a story that needs to be told over and over again. A really amazing story of heroism. Saifullah, you know, it's really inspiring to see a young person like you who has gone through so much in life and now being able to make a positive change. Your master's degree, of course, in journalism is itself a huge achievement, because now you are in a position, inshallah, even although I know you have done it before, but you're in a position to really tell the stories of Rohingya people, of your people, of Rohingya Canadians, of Rohingya youth, which is something that is very close to your heart. I know. So, how has your education, and especially now with with conflict, peace and conflict studies, how has that broadened your sort of your horizons and your understanding of what is happening, and more importantly, what lessons do you have that have you learned from your education now in some of these specific specialized fields, basically?
Uh, First of all, so many things inspire me in my life. When I was in Bangladesh, my community leaders had given me an opportunity to work with them. And then when I was studying, so within scholarships, I was given an opportunity and was told that you don't need to give back the money we are spending on you. When you will work for your community, that will be the paybacks of what we are spending for you. So another one thing is I started my career, uh, my community activities as a reporters at the Kaladan Press. Since then, when I moved to Malaysia, I work with the Rohingya Visions and writers, so many news agencies to help the boat people stories and to bring them on the international media. So I had some basic background of journalism before I came to Canada. So when I came to Canada, I asked and took advice from some of my community leaders and my friends. What should I study? And I had in my mind that I must study which will help my community one day. So I I decided I will dedicate my educations and my life for my community. So I thought that, and we knew that in our community there's really no any professional journalists in our community, because everywhere you can see the media and this and that, but professionalism is one thing in the media, to tell the story of the people professionally. So I decided to help my community, young peoples, and other community activists and media personnel to help them. So when I came to Canada for the first times, I went to journalism programs and I succeeded. And then I went to I applied for a peace and conflict study to do my master at Waterloo University. So one of the things, as I can say, my goal as I speak on this channel today, I am well aware of my life missions. So it is a missions of our necessity, our depressions. My fellow Rohingya have been robbed of their potential, a place to call home, and more the chance of happy life. So at the camp that have been run so long in the refugee camp in Bangladesh, just now where I raised, and so many people like me, my friends are brought up there, and they are thinking that they fear that they will die there. Maybe they will. I am here in Canada, shamefully indebted to them. So it is a sincere intention for me that we hope to recover, rehabilitate, rebuild, and eventually restore the balanced communal harmony and peaceful coexistence in our community. So it is an ambition. So if I want to say, it sounds like a steep mountain to climb, but look how far we have come. I came from Malaysia in 2016 as a refugee. While I was a refugee there, um, I couldn't do anything. I couldn't hope for anything. For my whole life, I was a refugee. I didn't see any freedom. I didn't see any multiculturalisms. I saw discriminations plus all those affected our life we thought that we were not considered as a humans. So you see today, living in Kitchener-Waterloo, a small city in Ontario, it is our adopted hometown, we can say. Um, a defect to have Canada's robust Rohingya community. In 2010s, I came to know that many Rohingya in Waterloo regions became Canadian citizens. It was an emotional for the community to regain citizenship after having been stripped of their citizenship from their own homeland uh, by their own governments. So the resettlement process for the Rohingya refugee opened a future of existing possibilities and started a new life. They all are, and including me, we are thankful a chance to have a good education for our kids, our children here, a better life for all of them living in Canada. So the generational, the Rohingya generation of this community is learning English, finding their jobs. Their children are doing better, going to universities and getting their first professional jobs. They're succeeding. So my personal intention is to give them a legacy, our coming generations, as they don't need to, after 10 years, when we will be not in these positions, we can give them a hope, a legacy, as they can start from there where we started, not from a scratch. So that's the goal we have set up with our organizations and in my personal view.
Excellent. Very, very good. Thanks for sharing this. We have limited time. I wanted to talk about a few other things, but one thing I did not want to spend too much time on today was the whole advocacy work, which I know I have personally worked very closely with some of you, especially with the Anwar, going back to at least 2012, 2013 with you, and Brother Saifullah, good 4 or 5 years now, and both of you have been part of the whole advocacy on the front lines with Burma Task Force, Justice for All, your organization, Rohingya Association of Canada, as well as CRDI, Canadian Rohingya Development Initiative, as well as many other people who work so hard behind the scenes and sometimes on the front line, and alhamdulillah achieved a lot of amazing results. Some symbolic, but some very concrete, practical results. Of course, Canada being the first country to call it a genocide. Canada stripping the honorary citizenship of Aung San Suu Kyi, and of course Canada dedicating a huge chunk of aid in of course over a period of time to the Rohingya refugees. As well as, I mean, there's a whole bunch of other things, of course, that we can list that actually we as a community and the Rohingya people and the leaders like you were able to achieve, alhamdulillah. But what I wanted to today talk a little bit more about, and in the next few minutes we have together, is really the Rohingya community in Canada and their challenges. And some of these you have already highlighted, but I wanted to go into some specifics because I know all three of you, your organizations, are involved with some of the settlement support work, supporting, of course, the refugees who have been coming over the past few years. So the first question I have is, what are the top challenges? And this is for all three of us now, to all three of you to share your perspectives on. And we'll start with Yasmin. What are the top challenges that Rohingya in Canada are facing once they, not only just once they arrive, but even for the next 10 years, let's say? What are some of the key challenges that you're noticing as Rohingya Canadian families are facing?
One of the first few thing is the separation from our homeland, the separation from what is familiar, and that is the new challenges with new language, navigating the system, navigating the government system or the culture, or the surroundings that they're in. All of this is basically part of a bigger challenge that comes with someone being removed from their homeland and now having to settle or getting familiar with the new country or the society that they live in. And I think that with that it comes this sense of helplessness when oftentimes we see our relatives, we see our family, we see our parents, we see many people that we cherish and love going through such harsh reality in our own homeland without the ability to be able to reach out and help right away. It happened to me in August, on August 25th, 2017, when I was at that point thinking that what the Rohingya cause or whatever that we're doing right now is or whatever that the community is trying to do is too big for me to actually help or solve or participate in. And with one phone call from my mom late that night, I realized that the family that I have, or the family that I'm hoping to reconnect in Rakhine State, would be lost forever if I do not do anything at that point. And August 25th that I'm talking about is the day that the military carried out the clearance operation, and our village, the place that I was born in, was surrounded by the military, by troops upon troops, and they were terrorizing the villagers, and my family, for the majority of them, had to flee on foot without the understanding or the knowledge of where they were going or when they would be able to come back. And knowing that, realizing that, I cried probably for 3 days straight, not knowing what to do, where to go from this. And I realized how helpless I was, how helpless this all is. This is all a facade. The comfort, the ability to walk around at night and not be questioned or not having to go through checkpoints, being free to speak our minds, all of this is just amazing. If it's just for me, I don't know how much I could enjoy it. So that's the kind of struggle and challenges that I feel is communal to our community as a whole. There's always going to be that part of us that long for our families, that long for the success, for the peace and liberty that they cannot have. We always long for them to share this piece of happiness that we have, but unfortunately, genocide does not end very easily, and it gets carried through so many generations. And I feel that whatever my grandma experienced in her time had already been passed down to me, and that separation, that anxiety of not being able to be connected with your roots is always going to be there no matter what, until this issue of dehumanization and marginalization of Rohingya can stop.
Of course. But Anwar, would you like to share your experience and your thoughts when it comes to the challenges now currently the Rohingya community is facing in Canada?
Within Canada, I see the biggest challenge is the resources. What I mean in resources is they need a lot of help. Our refugees, the Rohingya people, are very different from other refugees. If I were to compare, in many ways, what we have witnessed in our entire lifetime had been cheating, looting, beating, being bullied, and all these multiple kind of types of injustice is either by state or by host countries that we lived before coming to Canada, or sometimes even by our own people, either knowingly or unknowingly. So, and then there is a trust issue. When these people are here, we do not have enough resources. Then there is a trust issue. Well, I do not know this guy. When I was in Malaysia, the other guys did these things to me. When I was in Thailand, that organization did these things to us. And I don't know what these people are going to do. So that's kind of trust. is a big obstacles in helping the newcomers. Actually, the creation of Rohingya Association of Canada in 2007 was the main issue, just to help this locally resettled at that time uh, refugees are coming from Bangladesh camp. That was the only mission. Then through the years, we have gained actually a lot of experience. What was lacking? Why there is a lot of mistrust? And what we are lacking, kind of like this. So if I put two or three bigger chunk, one is the resources. We do not have enough resources. The other is the trust, and it takes really long time to build trust among the volunteers and the recipient of the help. Our organization went to schools, primary school, middle school, high school, and talked to these educators about our cultures and about these people. It took very long time, and luckily we were able to pull up things and manage in a way very well. But still, we still need a lot of resources like mental health counseling, and because we don't have those concepts, we think this guy is mad. It is a spell. Somebody put on a spell. It is a genie, all sort of things. So those are some of the resources we need. Those are the biggest challenge in the community as we see it. And also, when people live in a hand-to-mouth situation for 20 years, 30 years, it's not easy to go back to work. So the other resource, also this fall into the resource group. When people come here quickly, if we can find a job for them, and then life gets settled down much faster, and trust building become much easier in them. So we're, alhamdulillah, we're still continuing. Last year through ICNA Canada, we settled 13 families, and they're doing quite well. And again, challenges. It is full of challenges.
Oh, mashallah. I
It
mean,
is full of challenges.
I'm aware of your wife, and your community, your organization's work with the settlement of refugees, especially Rohingya refugees in Kitchener-Waterloo area. Mashallah, is very admirable work that you guys are doing, and definitely you know the challenges more than I would, because you deal with this firsthand. I believe you're having some trouble with Saifullah's connection at the moment, so hopefully we'll come back to him. One of the things that you touched upon is, it's interesting that you talked about mental health. And unfortunately, we don't have time to talk about this, but I can only imagine the trauma that the Rohingya refugees in Canada and across the world face every single time we see those images of boat people, the boat loads, the lost boats. I mean, I remember that was really the defining moment for my personal own activism and involvement with the Rohingya cause. SubhanAllah, I cannot believe, like, the nights, the kinds of terrors that I would night terrors, as you may want to call it, at night. Just simply hearing those stories and seeing those images. And just 2 days ago, or 5 days ago, we saw another horror story, thank God, ending in a, with a good ending, alhamdulillah, in Indonesia. So alhamdulillah, they're great people out there. Common people are beautiful people who have done so much. But I can only imagine what you guys have to go through as refugees, as children of refugees, as first generation Rohingya people in Canada. And definitely this is one of a major areas that would require a lifelong commitment on the part of our community here and Canadian government when it comes to trauma counseling and resettlement and mental health resources. So as we come to an end, I want to ask you a couple more questions, and one being, what do you think Canadian government can do more and can do better when it comes to supporting Rohingya refugees in Canada? So we'll start with Yasmin and then Anwar.
I think one of the few things that the Canadian government need to I think some of these policies are already being enacted in some ways, but I would love the stronger commitment to ending a genocide, not just through actions, not just through gestures, not just through statements, not just through offering humanitarian aid, which is great. We need it because there are, a million lives that are at risk of starvation. And when you talk about the boat crisis, this is exactly, you can trace it directly back to the restrictive livelihoods, which stems from the lack of funds and the mismanagement of funds within the refugee camps. And I really, really hope that the Canadian government, since we took covenant to prevent, not just to protect people, but to prevent genocide from happening, and there's one that's already ongoing, I would hope that Canada would lend its hand into resolving the issue. The other thing is with the restriction in the livelihood in the refugee camps, we can definitely pull some of our allies in and have a serious talk about what we want. This lost this quote unquote lost generation within the refugee camps who have not had actual access to education or the basic human rights. What are we hoping for them to turn into? We can become contributing members of the society if we get the resources, if we get the support that we need. Even if they're thousands of miles away, there is a real chance that Canada can actually help and support, children and mold them into, upstanding citizen that would not be despised by all of these countries that, shut borders and deny them entry, that they have to be lost at sea. There are so much more that we could be equipped with and become, so much more and give back, because all three of us here are the examples, and I'm not the best one to pick out from. There are so many of us that are doing wonderfully in a new country, but we just need to have, we just need to be given the chance. And I really, really hope that the Canadian government would take into consideration. One last thing is that there is a real threat to doing all of this work and not paying attention to our business dealings. Our Canadian pension plan invests in Kirin Company. And Kirin directly deals with the Burmese military. There has to be a real consequence to, dealing with people who perpetrate genocide, who perpetrate and orchestrated the mass atrocity. We really need to reassess a lot of these things if we really are committed to changing this world and be the actual champion of human rights that we want to call ourselves as.
Excellent. Thank you very much. Brother Anwar, would you like to share your thoughts on what Canadian government can do better and more for especially the Rohingya refugees in Canada and, of course, other places as well?
Sure. I would like to put them into two folds. One is that Canada should bring more Rohingyas. Really, at some point, I have communicated many levels of people in the government, and every time I am told by most of them is, Anwar, the need of Rohingya refugees is unlimited, so we cannot fulfill that. That is actually not true. All the refugees, there is a bigger need, and probably there are refugees who need more than our people needs, or whose needs are greater than our people's need. And they are a kind of prime example in many ways that if there is a chance, we strive, really. We strive and we do very good, very well, very, very well. The lack of resources is one of them the Canadian government should address. I am not saying bringing more refugees is a solution, but bringing refugees has a lot of benefit ties to it. And we can do a lot better by bringing some of the people who are diminishing, who are disappearing, dying, surviving one day at a time. I have lived in Thailand for years, one day at a time. I can swear on it, one day at a time. I had absolutely no clue what would happen to me and to my life tomorrow. That's how our survival was. And the other issue I would like to say is Yasmin already articulated very well. I just would like to touch base a little bit on it. Is just saying, issuing some official statement saying that, oh, we condemn with very strongest way. That is not working. Sometimes diplomatic work doesn't work. Soft approach doesn't work. Then Canada should take hard approach. Canada should also put pressure on the ASEAN, not only Burma. I'm not saying Burma should be, getting a break and okay, forget about Burma and put the pressure on other people. I'm not saying that. While we are putting pressure on the Burmese government, there are other countries, they should
Mhm.
take the responsibility. For example, Malaysia, Indonesia, Thailand. In Thailand, I just wanted to touch base a little bit in Thailand. For Rohingyas, there's exclusive rules unwritten, nowhere written. For Burmese refugees who come from Burma, there are many clans flee from Burma
Mm.
because Burma is a refugee production country. Every year they produce millions of refugees in Burma and they flee. For other clans, except Rohingya, there are two options in Thailand. One is entering the workforce directly. The other is going to the refugee camp along the border of Burma and Thailand. A lot of refugee camps, they can go there. For Rohingyas, only one option: go to the jail indefinitely,
Mm.
absolutely indefinitely. Was there a crime? No. If you is it written in anywhere? No, it's unwritten. That's how the recently in the last 2 3 years, thousands of Rohingya refugees who ended up being in Thai jail indefinitely
Mm.
were brought to the U.S. So it has become increasingly a burden on the ASEAN countries like Indonesia, Thailand, especially Malaysia and Thailand. So Canada should address these issues to those countries.
Mm.
Okay, why don't you put pressure on Burma? Burma is an ASEAN country, and it is not your issue. I understand, but it's Burma's issue, and that is spilling over and becoming a burden on you.
Yes.
So that is another angle that Canadian government must address.
Thank you.
And since the root cause is in Burma, of course, the issues must be resolved there.
Mm.
But ASEAN countries can take a really play a big role there.
For sure. Thank you for sharing. Saiful, why don't you go ahead and share your thoughts on what can Canadian government do to help the Rohingya refugees right here in Canada as well as, of course, around the world?
Yes, I think I miss. Can you hear
Yes.
me? Yeah, I think I missed one of the parts. The challenges and what Canada can do here. So in Canada, we don't see that the challenges because we are in Canada. We have a good life. We are comfortable. So with everything, having a good education, we don't see the main challenges. But actually, our community is traumatized when they were in the refugee camp. They were in refugee life. When they come to Canada to bring them back to a normal life is not an easy task. So the governments, the Canadian governments, still I can see every community, every other community, they do have a lot of resources. They had well funded or they do have a lot of resource to use. But in our community, we don't have that. And another one thing is we call it Canada call it a genocide. Genocide is a key word. It is a statement of fact and a political declaration with a political consequences.
Mm.
So, in part, because Canada played a big role, like saying that it is a genocide, but uh, just saying in a word is not something. They should act. And another one thing, 2 years ago when the Bob made a report, he made 17 recommendations. I was so happy Canadian government will do that. And so far today, the Canadian government haven't touched a single one of them. We expect at least 2-3 of them will be doing. And for example, resettlement, if it is not possible to bring from Bangladesh, there's a lot of refugee flood inside in Malaysia, and they are the main, they're one of the biggest victim of hate crime just now. They can bring them there from there, and from Indonesia, India. So if they are not allowed, Bangladesh is not allowing, there's a lot of countries. And another one thing is that what in our advocacy work we saw that UNHCR is reluctant to bring the Rohingya or to send the Rohingya as a resettled refugees, because when we talked to one of the main in charge of UNHCR, he directly told us that if Canada take refugee, they will take only 300, 400, or 500, not more than that, and they will spend all the money on it, and then they will not give us funding. So that's their problems. But if Canada try to do something, if they try, as they try to be champion of human rights and all, they can do a lot of things. The Yasmin already mentions, Brother Anwar mentions, and the Rohingya community, Rohingya-led organizations or Rohingya-led community, they are doing an important work, some at a very impressive scale with the utmost efficient possible. But Rohingya-led organizations rarely receive international funding from the global humanitarian system. All the funding from Canada going to Bangladesh or for the international organizations are going to the salary or accommodations or for their expenses, and maybe 70% of them, even 20% of the money is not going to refugees, Rohingya refugees. So there's a bigger challenge the Rohingya community is facing. And when the international community, Canada or including any organization, they make any decisions, they don't include any Rohingya there. They become the decision makers. They don't ask what happened to the refugees. They make the decision without asking the refugees. And if we see, the reality is in the Rohingya community all over the world, we call ourselves 3 million Rohingyas. Among the 3 million, we don't have 300 Rohingya activists. And always people like NGOs, governments say we need to empower grassroots level the Rohingya community, but they never spend a single dollar for the Rohingya to empower them. Sometimes some of the NGOs go to the camps and just bring the people, throw some bottle of waters and food packs, and they take the picture and come back and ask money for the Rohingya refugees. We are doing this and that, but really we need an empowerment, because the Rohingya youth living in the camps, we are scared that after 2-3 years, the international community or NGOs who are working for now, for us now, they will be busy with their work after 1 year or 2 years. We are scared that these young people who don't have education, who don't have any resources for their survival, they will be exploited. They will be used in illegal activities. And local media, when they will portray the Rohingya as with T-words or some other things. So that's the biggest challenge the Rohingya community facing. It is not the challenge for the Rohingyas living in Bangladesh or Malaysia. It is a challenge for us as well. So when it will happen in Bangladesh, who are supporting in Canada, they will tell us, oh, Rohingya are not good people.
Yes.
We will not help them.
I'm sorry, we're gonna have to just conclude our show, but this is actually very, very much needed conversation that needs to continue. And we will have actually another show talking specifically about actually advocacy itself. What else needs to be done, and what achievements we have made in Canada, and what else needs to be done. I wanted to conclude by asking you, and I just will give you 1 minute each max. Actually, I was at 30 seconds each, and I just want to ask, what are one or two things you want the Canadian Muslim community to do for the Rohingya refugees right here in Canada? What are some 1 or 2 things that come to mind? I'll start with Yasmin, 30 seconds for you, 30 seconds Anwar, and then Saiful.
Thank you for that very, very important question. I often see the need for us to educate ourselves, no matter what the issue is. And I often have to continue to educate myself on other issues that I can help support, on other advocacy issues or human rights violation that I don't know of. And it's really, really interesting to be able to experience that. And I would encourage every Muslim to really, really read about us, think about us a little bit more in your prayer, and educate yourself on why we're here. And don't just think about us when you need to make a donation or pay your zakat, because that's not a real solidarity. Although this is going to be a little bit pointed, but it's really important for us to actually understand that in the Quranic tradition, it's not sitting with the feeling or with the pain that we have for our brothers and sisters that's going to change their circumstances. It is changing it with your hand, changing it with your actions that is going to be, better and excellent in the sight of Allah. So I really hope that apart from just learning about us, you reach out to us and ask us what you need us, what we need your help on, and definitely there are so many things that you can help. Thank you.
Great, thank you, Brother Anwar. Please, 30 seconds.
I would like to request all my Canadian Muslims 2-3 things. One is that please pray for us. Prayer is a big part of our Muslims' life, and if it is possible for you financially, sponsor one person, an orphan, a single mother, or a family. Maybe take part, 4 or 5 families, you can sponsor one family, kind of like that. The other is, please do whatever you can to remind the Canadian government, just recognizing the crisis as genocide will not resolve the issue. Do whatever government needs to do to find a solution. Constant reminder will make a difference. The last but not least is the yes, please contact us. Whatever information you like to need. I'm not saying to donate us. I'm not saying that. If you like to donate, it's wonderful. If you cannot donate, that is wonderful as well. That is good. If you like to know more about our people, our crisis, what sort of assistance, what kind of help we can get from you, and how can we use you to help our people, please contact us at any time.
Excellent.
That's all I have to say.
Amazing. Thank you very much. Saifullah.
My simple message is, don't forget us. Keep in your dua, and always try to reach out to us. We have been doing some works because we need to do a lot of work to build the community, to help the Rohingya community in other countries, and to get their citizenship back. So many work we have to do ahead. So please work with us, stay with us, and we thank. I personally thanks all those, the people who have been helping us and supporting on Fi Sabilillah. And we want other people to join us and work together to bring a tangible solutions for the Rohingya community here and in other countries as well.
With that, we're going to have to end this very critical conversation, unfortunately, at this point. But we do hope to bring these wonderful guests back to this show again. I want to personally thank Brother Anwar Arkani, Brother Saifullah Muhammad, as well as Sister Yasminullah, for their courage and for their passion for this work, and for being able to share their personal, painful stories with us. Folks, as you can see and you can hear today again, once more, we have a lot of work cut out for us when it comes to advocating for human rights for the Rohingya people, as well as other genocides that are happening around the world. And we're so fortunate to have so many amazing people and organizations like these 3 individuals, people and organizations that these people represent with us as we have today. It's our job to support their great work, to show solidarity, keep making dua for them, and be there in their good times as well as in difficult times. So with that, once again, thank you, all three of you, for being here with us today. And wanted to thank our production team for this wonderful show today, as well as Dawanet and TorontoMuslims.com for being our community marketing partner. Jazakumullahu khairan. We look forward to seeing you again. This is Taha Ghayur at Canada Today Show. Assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh.